There's just no way I couldn't have started with that drone shot.
What's your opinion on content creators for weddings?
I think this podcast has been a bit of a mini masterclass.
And it was 9 hours from the one I was meant to be at.
And I'm at a downstairs in a pub, right? So I'm guessing that's not going to translate very well to the story of your day.
Is the thing that I actually fell in love with, the storytelling.
I used to have a massive chip on my shoulder as things started changing and everyone was writing on their website, I tell the story of your day.
Shot is incredible. I'm looking at it now.
My Lake Como wedding recently was actually Facebook.
1,000-foot view and be like, right, where are the bride and groom? What are their mindset when they're looking at these things? Started off a woman with a camera.
Most of the problems with audio is our own mistakes. They're like
Biggest mistake I've ever done at a wedding.
all the gear, no idea.
They used to run adverts years and years ago. One of the ways they got famous.
We are not selling a product. We should not be selling a product. We should be selling an experience.
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Get Seen, Get Booked marketing podcast for wedding photographers and wedding videographers. How is everyone doing? Jamie, how are you doing, mate?
All good, all good. Excited for this episode. It's going to be a doozy.
What?
A doozy.
I don't even know what that is.
It's going to be good. There you go.
It's going to be good. Today we have Emma Wilson from Story of Your Day. Emma, how are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for jumping on. Do you just want to give the listeners a quick rundown of your background and what it is that you're doing?
Yeah, so I run Story of Your Day, which is an international wedding film company. I'm based in Switzerland, have been for about 8 years, in a ski resort, actually. And I film weddings all over the world. I also have a corporate company called The Story Creatives as well. But today we're focusing on Story of Your Day. And of course, I run Evolve Videography Training, which is workshops and one-to-one training and online courses as well for wedding videographers. But I specifically focused a lot of my time with the academy, which is for female filmmakers.
So from the videography side of things, then, how have you gotten to the level that you're at? Because I was looking at your website and some of the work that you've got's like absolutely incredible. I was watching one of the videos where is it Irene? I've got the name written down. Is it Irene and Kuhn?
Yeah.
Is that how you say it? And are you following them on the skis behind them when they're going down?
So I do a lot of adventure ski weddings.
Yeah.
I film and ski at the same time. It's really embarrassing actually because you can't ski nicely. You have to do power snow plow. But also I give them my GoPro and I give them my Osmo and they do a bit of filming themselves at the same time. But yeah, it's more worrying that you've got gear on your back and you're skiing, because if you fall over it wouldn't be very nice. But where did I come from? And I think that is one of the reasons where I am today, because actually that gave me kudos all along my journey, which is that I actually was at the BBC for 20 years, originally as a reporter in news and current affairs, and then as a newsreader. And then I became a BBC video journalist pioneer, so one of the BBC's first video journalists. So there I had to obviously film, edit, write, and stand in front of the camera on my own. So that's where I started to learn how to film. But it's funny because I never saw myself being creative in that side at all. I missed the initial training with the BBC. There was a guy from the Channel 4 that came in and he was all handheld and stuff. But I did some one-to-one training with this BBC College of Journalism trainer, and he was all about working on tripods. And I guess that's also where my style came from, because that's how I learn. But when he handed me over the camera and said, "You have to become one with your camera," you'd have to bleep it out, I replied, but I was not impressed. But within months, I never wanted a crew with me. I never wanted to take anyone out with me. And that's because I just wanted to take the credit all by myself for the stories I was covering and the work I was doing. So I edited on Quantel, I edited on Avid, and then I became a BBC College of Journal trainer, and I would be training new VJs that came into the newsroom how to film, how to edit, and also then I started teaching people how to edit on Final Cut, because I had self-taught myself on Final Cut. So I then taught the rest of the newsroom when they were moving from Quantel. So that's where my background came from. And obviously, I'm a journalist, you know, even though I'm not like a journalist now, I love writing blogs because I love writing, and I love telling stories. And so that's exactly where it came from.
I was just wondering how you went from the BBC as a video journalist and then decided, right, okay, I'm going to go into doing weddings. Because I'm guessing you just didn't start jumping into ski slopes and shooting weddings that way. Like, there must have been some sort of transition that you fell into.
I literally was going to say I fell into it. So I had a former colleague from the BBC. She was a reporter, and she'd started doing, I don't know how she got into it, wedding photography, but she'd left the BBC. She was doing wedding photography. I was on my second maternity leave. So she said, why don't you film weddings? And I said, I can't think of anything worse. And then someone at work asked me to film their wedding. And I was like, this is a bit like literally the same week. So I was like, kind of, that's fate. I'll have a go. I'll see if I liked it. And I really liked it. I just really enjoyed it. So for about 3 years, I did both. So I worked a wedding on a Saturday. On the Sunday, I read the news. And 3 days in the week, I was a reporter. And the other days, I was editing. So I never had any time for myself. So then I had to choose, right, am I going to focus on the BBC, or am I going to focus on weddings? Because I just couldn't do both.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, the BBC forced me not to use my BBC name. So my name at the BBC was my maiden name, which was Emma Massey. And they said, you can't use that for weddings in case you bring the BBC into disrepute. And you can't use your married name either, which is Emma Wilson. So you need to come up with a name for your company. And actually, my dad came up with a name, Story of Your Day, because of my journalistic background. But back then, so this was 2011, people didn't talk about story so much. Mm-hmm. So even when I first entered the industry, at the wedding film industry, I was already doing something a bit different, because my wedding films were all very, very story focused. They weren't ever just like highlights films. And also, because of my background at the BBC, straight away, I was very much focused on audio, because I started my life as a journalist actually in radio. So audio is really, really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think just touching on the story element, I think there's a lot, and I've actually seen conversations of this in other social media groups and stuff like that. I think that a lot of, there's a basis that a story of the wedding day is looked at as highlights as the day goes on. What's your thought process? So, if you're going to tell someone how to like upskill, or like, what advice would you give someone to how they should look at it?
Well, so firstly, I used to have a massive chip on my shoulder as things started changing and everyone was writing on their website, I tell the story of your day. And I used to think, but you just don't. So I would write my emails to a bride, and unlike many other videographers who say they tell the story of your day, I do tell the story of your day. And then I started thinking, God, get over it, Emma. Just tell them what you do, not what you do compared to what other people do. And for me, it's all about being inspired by that couple and their story and learning about them. I've never taken a wedding booking that's actually come into fruition without meeting that couple before they book. I've taken a few bookings which ended up, when we met just before the wedding, us working out, right, we're just not a really good fit. They're not interested in having audio. They're not interested in their story being told. But I blame the planners that were involved in that, because from the start, I always say, let me speak to the clients. I need to speak to the client. But, I don't do wedding highlights films. I make trailers. So if you watch the films on my website, every single trailer is completely different. And I'll focus a lot of the time on one story in that trailer. So, and I stay committed to that story. I'm not trying to squeeze in all the best and most beautiful aesthetic pictures as I can, and all the best highlight clips. Of course, I have to leave that for the longer films, but for the trailer, I focus on one particular story. But my clients book me for that. And a good example would be, when I just soon after moving to Switzerland, I had 2 inquiries for the same wedding date. One was for the Beau Rivage in Lucerne, beautiful hotel, gorgeous couple. And then a few days later, before we'd signed all the forms, but I was thinking this is going to be great. It's going to put me on the map in Switzerland. It's going to be amazing. I got a call, an inquiry from a couple from Dallas, and that's the film that remains at the top of my website and always will do. And they were coming back to Switzerland, only 11 with 11 guests. This was way pre-COVID, right? So 11 guests is a bit like, oh my God, how am I going to do anything with that? But they had an amazing story, which was she was coming back to Switzerland to marry in the exact same church that her grandparents had married in during World War II. They'd met in Switzerland. She, her mother was a nurse, her grandmother, and they'd come over to Switzerland, and she nursed him in hospital, and he was in the Swiss Army, and they met. She had all these love letters, right? So obviously and all these pictures of them in the Sertig Valley and at the church. And for me, that was like, oh my God, this is the story. Goodbye, Lucerne, beautiful couple. But hello, Davos, micro wedding with the most amazing story. And that's what I'm talking about. You need to get to know people's story. I asked that in the inquiry form, tell me your story. And if I have a couple that fills in the inquiry form and they don't fill all those boxes in and they don't tell me anything about themselves, I don't want to know, no name, therefore I know you haven't even looked at my website properly. My wedding is at such and such, and this is the day. We've got 150 guests. That's not the story I'm interested in. I want stories. I know straight away when people and I are going to work because they've given me their soul. They've told me their story, and I get excited about that.
So how did you go about? That sounds like the whole nursed them in the war. That sounds like the beginning of a love story, like a movie. How did you go about telling that story for the present couple in the film?
Well, I also do a lot of pre-shoots with my couples. So the day before the wedding, we went to the church and we filmed them going to the church, visiting the church. We went into the Sertig Valley, where these beautiful mountains on the side, and they're looking through the old photos together. And it's got the pictures of her grandparents. It's standing in that valley with they're having their portrait shoot done. And at the same time, I got her mother to read the letters. So her mother was reading these most romantic, most beautiful letters that Pops, the grandfather, had been sending to his wife back at home, and they were just so amazing. So that just told the story, that narrated it. And then, of course, in the actual service themselves, the person that was doing the reading said, we're here today because. So it's all about knitting that together and making sure that people understand that that's what the story was all about.
It's incredible.
It's really interesting. Is there anything that you look for then for taking someone on? Because obviously you have to like quite a particular client where they have got a story. So I'll give you an example. I met my partner. I've actually been with 15 years yesterday, right? And I met her downstairs in a pub, right? So I'm guessing that's not going to translate very well to the story of your day. So are you looking for some sort of like unique story, or is it just if you get a vibe off it when you're reading what they're telling you?
It's a vibe, and then it's also the meeting them, but also, it's not just about how you met, it's the journey that you've been on. And I have a lot of clients, maybe it's because of my age, but I also have a lot of maturer clients where they maybe met when they were at school, then they went off and got married to someone else, then they've come back together. I've got stories like that. I've got stories where the couples have been together, and I literally called the film 17 years before they finally got married. So I just build connections with my clients. And because, as I say, I do a lot of pre-shoots because I'm on a destination wedding for 99% of the time, then I get there early enough and I do those interviews. I do interview my clients. If you were to watch the film on my Italian page, the Lake Como wedding, you'll see it starts with an interview with the groom, and it's him telling the story of how they met and why he loves her so much. And people think, oh, you start with an interview. Well, watch it, because you'll see the work that goes into it and how it all knits together. But you shouldn't be afraid of those things. You shouldn't be afraid of all the ways that you can arm yourself with the story. But of course, audio is key. And that's why a lot of the time when I talk about audio, when I go to the videography show and I do motivational or educational talks, I do talk a lot about audio. When I'm in Athens this April for the Filmmaker Global Festival, my whole talk, 2 hours on audio. It's all on audio, where you gather audio, how you gather audio, how to use it in your story, and not just the spoken word, but ambient, how music can make a difference, and all these things come together. So when I see people saying, "Oh, I've been using Soundstripe for 50 years and it's really boring," yeah, but you've got to spend time on that stuff, because all of it is just as equally important, and all of those things bring that film and bring that story to life. I could change the music and it would be like change the whole film.
Mm-hmm. There's a guy who I follow on TikTok who he's in America. He's exploded on TikTok now. He's got like nearly 1 million followers. Justin Porter, he's called, and he is so heavy on audio. Like, I mean, like the start of his wedding, in the old wedding films, the actual R films. It's like the start of a Netflix, like, do you know when you see these reality shows on Netflix where the bridal, they're in the bridal, I'll picture the bridal party like in a meal in a restaurant the night before the wedding, they're all mic'd up and they're having their interaction, and he's all about that. So I do agree with you, like the sound design and stuff, and I feel like a lot of the top videographers, if that's what we want to call them, like the top filmmakers, one thing that I do notice is that audio is a massive part of the films. One thing I noticed though on yours, so
I'll just tell you one
go
other
for it,
thing I
yeah.
think is really, really important. And if
Mhm.
you're gonna send me a film for me to unpick it for you and help you with it, is that I would say in almost all cases, I would always say, please don't start your trailer, your highlights film with drone shots. They are not storytelling shots. They're leaning into being corporate films for the venue or the hotel. They're not a story. If you want to tell stories, you need to start with the intimate shots. Even when I filmed on Lake Como with my drone, I did not open with a drone shot. There is one film, if you wanted to look at it, which is in Switzerland. It's an Indian couple and it's a pre-wedding shoot on Glacier 3000. There's just no way I couldn't have started with that drone shots, but within 15 seconds, it's cut straight to the party action at the end of the wedding, right into the action. But in most cases, one thing you asked me, Jamie, what's the difference between a highlights film and a trailer? There's so many things, but it's audio and sound design. It's not putting things down in chronological order. It's using the language of film and syntax to tell your stories and understanding the language of film. And it is not starting your films unless you've got really, really good reason to with a drone shot. So
That
they
drone
are
shot
my
is
top choice.
incredible.
Sorry.
That drone shot is incredible.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
But if you listen to it with the audio and with that music, and then how it crashes into the Indian dance music afterwards, it is something really, really amazing. But
No, I
again, you'll see I spend loads of time with a couple the day before, the day after. Yeah.
No, I think this is all excellent stuff, and I think even no matter what level of wedding filmmaker or even photographer that you're at, I mean, this is leading obviously into the videography side. I think there's so much, even in just the short chat we've had so far, that people can take away from it. And I do feel like sound design is like it's something that I definitely need to improve on when I'm shooting my own weddings, like 100%. But one thing I noticed as well, so obviously it's your business, it's called like Story of Your Day, but I've noticed that every single wedding film has its own title. So it's not, am I right in saying that it's not just like Ian and Brandon? There's a title like it's The Bridge Across Forever. There's always that. Do you name every
I'm not
single
sure I've
wedding?
been as tacky as that, Bridge Across Forever. But yeah, they've always got a story. So yeah, like 17 years. Oh, they've always got a title because
Yeah.
I'm also picking something out about the story that I'm about to tell. Yeah.
Mhm. No, yeah, it's good. It's a good way of doing it. I mean, and it pushes across that story element of it. One thing that you
Because
mentioned.
that's the problem with people. That's the problem. So we're going to start talking about how I get my clients, and from what I've told you, it isn't from social media marketing. I
Mhm.
use that in a different way to attract different people. It is about making sure that my clients come on my website and they understand exactly what I do. And so storytelling has to be really. You have to have a niche. You have to have a niche. You have to stick to it. And no matter what the trends are and what everybody's trying to do here, there, and everywhere, you have to be committed and you have to stick to it, because you need to set yourself apart. You can't be worried about what other people are doing, and you're not going to worry about what other people are doing if you're doing something different.
So so there's two things here I wanted to get into. The first thing you started answering, actually. So you mentioned planners about 10 minutes ago. So how are you actually getting your leads and your bookings? Where's the biggest source coming from for that?
So I will tell you something that I'm actually quite proud of. I have never been recommended by a client to a friend.
It's interesting. Yeah.
No client shares me with their friends. They
So
don't.
no referrals.
Not from client. They do not want to share me with their friends. They keep me all to themselves.
They don't want a wedding. They don't want the friends to have the same type of story.
But no, but the funny thing is they're not going to get that. But they just want to, they think, I've got this. It's so special. I don't even want you to talk to her. So, yeah.
Wow.
So where then?
So lots of different places, actually. I get a lot of referrals through photographers, and some photographers I've never met. And that especially goes here for Switzerland, because there are many good photographers here, but there aren't very many good wedding videographers here. They're still very, very dated. They're very in the past. It's all very, 90-minute films, documentary style. Not many cinematic filmmakers here. So I get referrals from photographers I don't even know them, but they know me and they know my work. I'm also the only videographer to be recommended by Switzerland Tourism. So I get work through Switzerland Tourism. I get work through a lot of planners as well, and from my website. Instagram, just as I'll put it, I don't know. I've had my Lake Como wedding recently was actually Facebook. It was in a Facebook group. Someone at the last minute was looking for a videographer. Didn't think anything would come of it. Posted in the thread. God, there must have been about 288 comments, and Brooke and John decided on me. There was only 3 weeks to go. It was brilliant. And Instagram, I do get some people initially reaching out to me for proposals and elopements, but not really for weddings. I use Instagram to attract other wedding planners and other wedding suppliers and to connect with them. Mm-hmm. So that's where I get my work from, and I have good SEO on my website. But the really, really important thing that I learned when I moved here and I started doing destination weddings. So the first thing I had to do was change my website so that it was in English, French, and German. Okay, but then I made this really stupid boo-boo, because I was then getting people contacting me from, well, France, that's fine, but Germany, because I did the URL .com/DE or /FR, but actually it should have been /CH for Switzerland and then DR as in the German language, because I don't want to do weddings in Germany per se. Lots of weddings I do in France. But I learned that lesson, and after being here about 18 months, I realised what was going on. And I was like, oh, God, this is a nightmare. So I had to change it. So firstly, there's that. So I do get some inquiries that come in the French language to me, which is always fun. Oh, quickly into DeepL. But for me, it was the landing pages. So I realized, okay, I need landing pages so that when I do put myself in Facebook groups, I'm in this place, I'm in that place, or someone finds me and writes me an email before I even send them the online brochure, they get a landing page. So without just reminding myself, oh, I'm on the wrong thing. So on my website, I've got locations. So, and my locations are Switzerland, obviously, UK and Ireland, France, Italy, Austria, and other destinations. Okay, so that means that when I share that link with people, that they get a landing page for that. But also, it's all about SEO, isn't it? It's France wedding videographer, Italy wedding videographer, or whatever the SEO is. I don't do my SEO. And then the other landing pages is the fact that I now have Films by Team Emma, which is my team filming for me, or Emma Wilson, And then I've got elopements and intimate weddings landing page, adventure and ski weddings landing page, proposals and engagement landing page, LGBTQ and inclusive weddings. And then I have personal branding films and the Swiss concierge, which is like logistics. My husband's in the travel industry here, so he does a lot of planning for my clients once they get over to Switzerland. Once they land, he can do all the logistics for them. So it's those landing pages that I get. And at the bottom of each landing page is a contact form. And so when I get the email through, I know immediately if they've come from the landing page or the main contact form page, where they've come from. And most of the time it's from the landing page of the country that they're getting married in.
Okay.
And what about, so I know you mentioned like sticking to your niche or having a niche, and if you're a videographer, what sort of niche do you class yourself in? Because I know that you do like a lot of destination weddings, but you look for a particular couple. Like what sort of niche do you identify with? Like who's your ideal client, and how do you work that out?
My ideal client is someone that can afford me, who's got a really lovely story to tell, and I'm available. All those things. You know, of course, when weddings come in and there's not so much of a story, it's more of a struggle. But if they've got the budget and they've come through a planner and they want to use me, I'm going to accept the commission. But I have to spend more time with them to work on that. And of course, there are many different places where you can get the story. You can get the story from the initial inquiry. You can get the story from when you have your initial meeting, your discovery call to see if you're a good fit. Then after that, if they book, you can get the story from their wedding details form, which I send 8 weeks before the wedding. And then when you have so much planning and preparation in place, you are there and prepared on the wedding day because you know everything that's going to happen to anticipate what's going to happen next. I think also news helped me do that because news helped me recognize and anticipate moments before they even happen and react quickly and effectively without causing disruption. And then then you're open on the wedding day as well to listen, hear, and find the story. And of course, where's the last place that you can get the story? Come away from a wedding, might be a bit hectic, didn't feel like you pulled it off in terms of the story. You come back and in the edit, then you have to work harder in the edit. So there are all those levels where you can find the story. So I started out with the story, a woman with a camera telling your story, but now I have a team around me. So then I would say I tell stories about people, places, and love, but story of your day is redefining wedding films through cinematic storytelling.
Oh, that's a lovely line. I like that line. How many, just on the when you're talking about you started off a woman with a camera, generally speaking now, have you got like a minimum cameras per wedding, or what is
I
that?
film all day on an mirrorless Canon R5, and I use I'm not handheld, even though I think it's sometimes I've gone in and done a bit of handheld, but I don't actually follow. I don't follow the action. If you look at my work, the frame is still, and the action flows within the frame, and then it's all in the edit and syntax and language of film. So I use a Siriu. I've got one behind me. So all my shots are steady. And I use one all day. And also I'm not a prime snob. So most of the day I would say that I use a 2470 2.8.
Me too.
But I have lots of other lenses and I do have prime lenses. But sometimes, before I get to the wedding, I have to work out what I'm going to take because it's a lot of stuff, right? And I have as much audio stuff as I have cameras. So, when people talk about just having one audio device, I'm just like, well, you're never, ever going to get to the higher level. You need more in your box, in your toolbox, if you want to have really amazing audio. But for ceremony and speeches, because I upsell ceremony and speeches, everything's an upsell with me. Then I have 3 cameras. So I'm obviously a lot of the time I'm a solo shooter, but during the ceremony and the speeches, it's 3 cameras. And if there's more than one of me, there's 4 or 5.
And how many audio devices? We talked about audio. I think that, like you said, that's a very overlooked or just, what I think the standard is normally like the camera and a lapel mic on each person, but like what
No,
is
I
what is
think
your
actually I see a lot of people raving about the TX660, the TX650. Got nothing against it. Got 4 of them. They can be absolutely great as little run and gun mics. They're also, if I go to a wedding and there's a mic, a handheld mic, I will always put a TX60 on the handheld mics, always, because I back up and back up, back up. So I have Panasonic DM670s, which are quite old now, which I've mostly replaced with Tascam 10DL. I had replaced them with the Zoom F2 floats because I thought they were brilliant, but I had a few experiences with them where they just stopped recording after a few minutes. Now, I can tell you I've had horrible experiences with audio devices where instead of switching it into hold, I've switched it off. So, and most of the problems with audio is our own mistakes. They're like they user error. They're not emptying your SD card. They're not having enough battery in. They're not normally things that go wrong with the device. But the F2 caused me a few problems, and I started putting that on a groom, but then putting another device on the groom. We can't overload these people. You have to go, I have to know this is going to work, right? And then I've got the H6 Zoom, which I plug into the sound system. But mostly if there's a sound tech, if it's a DJ, I'll never, ever trust them. And I would always say to people, take your headphones with you, make sure that at source, at the point of recording, you can hear a clear sound without interference. But again, that's normally a backup unless it's a proper sound technician. I have an H1 Zoom I might stick in front of like a string quartet or something at the church. I used to have Instamic. I've still got Instamics, but I don't use them so much. Again, I found them a bit unreliable unless you use them through your phone, and it's just too much to think about. And I used to use radio mics. So obviously when I was at the BBC, I had loads of radio mics and I was using the BBC frequency. But every time something goes wrong with a sound system and you're on a radio mic, all fingers, right? It's your fault. And I can't take that. I'm just like, no, it's actually not my fault because I'm not on your anything. So I had once a vicar at Goldsborough Hall in Yorkshire, and they went start all this noise, and he said, "Just make sure that you're not on my radio frequency." I said, "Well, that'd be difficult because I'm on a BBC license frequency. So if anyone's on the wrong frequency, you're illegally on mine." But anyway, too much effort, right? So I record in the device.
The headphone tip, listening to audio, I've felt the biggest mistake I've ever done at a wedding was I was shooting a wedding and it was the first outside wedding that I've ever done. And it was also the first wedding where the audio had ever failed. And what had happened is the jack plug had came out with the camera. You're totally right. It was probably user error. And because I wasn't listening to the audio through the main camera device, the audio, and it was on the wedding venue went onto the back of the A1 motorway, and the audio was completely, and I was like stressed for so long thinking, right, how am I going to get out of this? Like I used AI, loads of things to clean it up, and it just wasn't good enough. And the only thing that really got me out of the shit really with that is the fact that the couple went, "Oh, we totally understand about the audio. None of the guests could hear it. Everyone was complaining and they couldn't hear us." And they kind of thought that was normal. I still feel a bit guilty about that. I mean, I managed to clean it up really good. But now, one of the things you didn't mention there is I've tried loads of different mics. I've tried the Sonys, I've tried the Rhodes, and I find the DJI ones are just so good. And they get a bit of slack from people, but I've never had any issues. But they've got they've got the fail safe. You can't accidentally turn them on or off. You can disable all the buttons. It internally records in case it disconnects from the transmitter and receiver. Don't talk to each other. And I find them brilliant. And they've just released a new version, which I've not tested yet, which has the 32-bit float, like the Zoom F2 that you were talking about. So
the thing is, right, I have got very much this attitude of all the gear, no idea. So that's why my DM670s with a Sony lavalier mic have still come with me to shoots because, if something works and it gets good audio and it's pretty safe, why spend money on new equipment? A new camera isn't going to make you a better filmmaker. And yes, start upgrading your audio devices if you've just got TX650s or TX660s, of course. But a lot of people, they make this mistake, don't they? And they just keep buying the latest camera, and they think, right, now I'm going to be super, super good. I've got to have the latest. I've got to have the latest. And I don't adopt that policy, because I know there's better ways to invest to become a better filmmaker. You know, and that follows through with the fact that when I do adventure ski weddings, that I'll be filming on my phone, my Osmo Pocket, and that was Osmo Pocket 1. I've just got the new 4. That's or 3, whatever. It's taken a long time for me to get the new one, but that's really good, and that's got a little microphone with it. And my phone, my camera, my GoPro, you know. So, and it's all in the edit. It's all in the edit that makes this, you match it all up, and you ensure that, you know, you edit it in such a way that people can't really tell what camera you've been filming on. So so that's my kind of principle about it. You don't have to have the latest gear, you
No, of
know.
course. The one, I just want to jump back a couple of steps. You mentioned that everything with you is an upsell.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get into pricing a little bit, because I know everyone, right? And I'm really nosy on this, so this is why I want to know anyway. But I know there's a lot of people who want to discuss pricing in Facebook groups. They're interested in it when the conversations are going. But I know you've got different you've got your team Emma, which you've got a team that does that you've got packages for that. You've got your pricing, where you solo shoot, which is a different set altogether. And I know that you said when we were chatting kind of off the recording, that there was a 62K wedding, and this is just me being nosy, because I want to know what's included in a wedding, and what's covered when it's over 60,000 for a wedding.
Okay, so that was one client, 2 weddings. So does that help you a little bit more?
Oh, wow.
What, you mean you got married and divorced within a day?
No, same clients, 2 weddings.
I'm joking.
So they got married in Switzerland during COVID, with just 11 guests, and then they went back to Romania to have their proper wedding the following year. And they already had videographers booked in Romania from the original wedding that was booked in the original year of COVID, and they didn't want to not have them, because they didn't want to let them down. It was nothing to do with money. Money was no object, as you could probably guess. But they absolutely loved my filmmaking and my storytelling. So they flew me to Romania to film the second wedding. So that's quite fun, actually, because there was a team there of 4 guys. They all had their radios on, and I joined in anyway. It was quite good fun. I thought it was quite good fun. But they were all on gimbals, and the photographers and I, because I don't use a gimbal, but that was my understanding of why photographers sometimes don't like to work with people with gimbals, because honestly, they were in virtually every shot. I was like, how can you possibly just get out of my way now? I'm really getting so sick of it. But they were really lovely guys, and it was funny because they had to do a film that night. They needed to show an on-the-day edit, and I thought, right, so I can either watch it, but I don't want to watch it because I don't want to be influenced in any way, shape, or form for the teaser that I'm going to make, you know, tomorrow, because I had an extra day in Romania. Or if I don't go in and watch it, I'm just going to look like I'm a bit of a mardy arse. So I went in and stood at the back, but didn't really watch it because they were more perfume style ads. So it was all the gimbals and the movements and the flowing hair in the wind and all that sort of stuff, which is like really, really far removed from what I do. So yeah, so they booked me. They were one of the clients that they came to me and they said, you've been referred by this photographer, and I thought, who? And I was like, yeah, I'll get on a call with them. And they got on the call. They're so lovely and bouncy and so just gorgeous. And they said, we want this and we want this, and they literally went through everything that was in the brochure and said they wanted everything. And I was like, you don't? Oh, okay. So I kind of felt, anyway, the next day, the money went through. So the first, I think it was about 22,000. And I rang up my bank and I went, is there any way that someone can put some money in my bank account and then take all the money out and fleece me? Because I literally thought, this can't be true. This can't be right. No, Mrs. Wilson, everything is fine, right? Okay, fine. And then they proceeded to want more and more things. I do something called a time capsule film as well. So they wanted that, and then they wanted additional films, and they wanted a sneak peek, and then they wanted this, they wanted that. So it just kept going up. And then they wanted it expedited, and I charge if you want your film quicker. I mean, I not much on. It was COVID, right? So I wasn't busy. But anyway, yeah, so it went up and up. And yeah, and then the following year they said, yeah, we're going to do it again and we want you to come. And I remember I was on holiday at the time in Cyprus with my family, and then the next amount came through, and I had my eye on a Mercedes, so I just went over and
I
bought
was
it.
gonna that holiday got better.
Oh my God, that holiday got much better. It was about a half an hour phone call, but they were just really excited to work with me. So you know, that's my biggest kind of commission to date. But yeah, the thing is, it's the upsells.
Can you go through that then? So what is you? So if someone comes to you and they want to hire you, are you just giving it? You must be like a complete base package where you're getting what, a trailer and a wedding film, which is X amount of minutes long, and then everything else that they want, ceremony, speeches,
Yeah.
whatever else you do, and you are charging an add-on for everything else.
And this is where when people talk to me about their pricing, this is where I basically change it up for people immediately by saying, stop giving that away. Stop giving that away. When they say, I'll take a second shooter with me. Oh, but I like it when my husband comes with me. Yeah, but the client doesn't know that. Remove it unless they pay for it. So you just have to be really, really strong about it. So if I'm doing an elopement here in Switzerland, the pricing changes for different things. But by the way, let me just explain to you that knowing a couple's story and knowing lots about them also arms me and their wedding with how much their spend is and how much money they've got, right? So I don't have a standard pricing form. They're all different. Admittedly, I have a base EU one, a base Switzerland one, a base UK and Ireland one, and a base other destination one. But depending on what the client or the planner says the client wants, then sometimes they get a fully bespoke offer. And sometimes they just get the offer, which is right. So for a wedding, the basic thing you can have is a 4 to 6 minute trailer. The important thing here is to get someone to commission that first, because I film the exact same at every wedding, no matter what the client commissions. Mm-hmm. So I do charge extra for pre-wedding shoot, but they're not going to be paying for that if they've just paid for a 4 to 6 minute trailer. But most couples, before they get to the wedding day, they've upgraded to an 8 to 10 minute feature film, which we all know is much harder to edit than a 15 to 20 minute film, right? I mean, anyone will tell you that. When I put my 15 to 20 minute film together, 15 to 18 minute film, it is sustainable. It's really watchable. It's got great audio. There's a lot of audio in it. And it takes me, but I do have a sort of formula. But for my trailers, there is no formula. I'm telling a story and it all unfolds as I'm editing. So what am I saying? So if someone's tight for budget, I'm going to try and secure that they're going to book that 4 to 6 minutes. Then the next level up is 8 to 10 minutes. And then after that, I say that the most popular thing that people commission, it's actually the most popular thing that people end up commissioning, is a 15 to 18 minute film of the day and a 4 to 6 minute trailer. But anything up and even beyond that, it's a sneak peek, it's a staccato story, it's a time capsule, it's a FOMO edit, it's a ceremony and speeches, filming on extra days, additional filmmaker, all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I joined like a wedding group. God, it must have been back in 2017, and it was 99% from the US, the old filmmakers from over in America. And I know a lot of them adopt that approach where they use a package. I can't remember what the name of the software is, but it's not available in the UK. It's only, you can only use it in the US. But it's basically an online package where you build your own package. So rather than having the traditional pricing, they have everything and it just totals the price up as they're going through. And I was trying.
It's available. I know someone, a female filmmaker, who was on one of my retreats a few years ago, and she was using that on her website. She didn't use it for long. I don't know why she stopped using it, but for her, where she was at her level, and the people that she was targeting as her ideal client, it worked for her. So I don't even have prices from on my website, and I'll tell you why. My first big wedding was in Paris at the Palais Garnier, and it was with a couple from the Philippines, and they were very, very famous in the Philippines. And the planner contacted me, saw my BBC credentials and contacted me. Well, the bride, Vicky Bello, her daughter had got married in Lake Como the year before. She was older, but her husband was much younger, in his 30s. And they'd had this, perfume style film, typical Como edit, right? And they didn't want anything like that. They wanted a real intimate story. So I ended up filming their wedding. But if I'd have had my pricing at the time, which I think was about 2,500 on my website, for sure they wouldn't have booked me.
Yeah.
Mm.
They wouldn't. They just wouldn't.
What was their budget for that one?
In the end, they spent, because they had a few add-ons, 17,000.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Are you asking the budget, or are you just asking the story
I
first?
ask it. I have templates in place for things, so I don't have to get emotionally involved when people fill in a form and don't tell me what their budget is. I have templates that I've written that I send that just says, look, I need this information from you. I need to know if we're a good fit, or if I'm going to refer you to someone else. I do ask budget, but sometimes I have a joke with people. I say, if you're worried about giving me a price that I'm more expensive on, so you think you're gonna give me like 3, and I'm gonna go, and I normally charge 1,800, but I'm going to say 3. So I kind of say to them, look, if you think your budget is more than I am, you're probably wrong. It's probably that you won't have quite that budget, and you might have to push it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just being open and honest. If you're fabulously expensive, you need to be open about it.
You've got to own it.
You got to own it. But what Jamie was saying, I think it was Jamie that said, what do you do more? I don't treat those clients any differently from any client, any client at all. Everybody gets the same love and attention. It's just that obviously the more films that you book, the more time it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously if I bring in a team around me, then I have to pay for them and their expenses, because most of them are destination weddings. But for instance, an elopement film is normally about 4 minutes long, and if it's local here where I live, then I'll charge 4,500 Swiss francs for that. So the exchange rate is so bad at the moment, isn't it? I think that's about £4,300. Then if they want an 8 to 10 minute film, it goes straight up to 6,500. But I wouldn't push a 15 to 20 minute film on someone that was just having an elopement. 8 to 10 is, we've pretty much stretched it to the limit. Mm-hmm. But then if they said, oh no, but I'd like the FOMO edit and I want the whole ceremony in full, because I have clients here that have elopements and they still have a celebrant, then I charge them.
Mm-hmm. No, it all makes sense. Just doing a bit of a switch in direction here, because there's a few things I want to ask you. That I know that you'd done a blog at the back end of last year in 2023, which was picked up by the Wall Street Journal. And it was about content creators at weddings, and do we need them or not? So my first question really about it is, what's your opinion on content creators for weddings? What's your viewpoint on it?
I just, look, it doesn't really affect me much, because in most cases my clients aren't interested in that. But you have to be on top of the game, right? So I do have an add-on as a content creator, and then I would bring in someone to work with myself. Interestingly, soon after the Wall Street Journal originally contacted me, I got called by a planner in Lake Como saying, my bride's looking for a content creator, and the wedding was like 2 weeks later, and I wasn't quite sure. So are they just wanting all the stuff? Are they wanting someone that's an expert on social media that's going to be posting all day and knowing all hashtags, and because can't do that. Anyway, so I said, well, what do they exactly want? They said they just want someone that will come film, and then they will deliver on a hard drive that day, everything. And I said, yeah, well, okay, well, I'll quote for it, but I just got a couple of questions. Have they got a wedding videographer? Because, this is no substitute for a professional wedding videographer. Yes, they've got a professional videographer and they've got a professional photographer. And I went, okay, well, then you need to speak to them first. Because if they're anything like me, it'll say something in the contract that they won't have a content creator unless it's been agreed to beforehand. And sure enough, she came back to me almost within an hour, yep, I've checked with the videographer and it's not allowed. And if there's going to be any content creation, his team will do it. And I was like, yeah, no brainer.
Yeah.
You know, of course he's going to charge more for it. But she had a budget of €3,000 for a content creator. Like,
Wow.
I'm like, this is insane. What my views, I've got it, I'm protected. It's in my contract. I'm protected by a lot of things in my contract. But that sort of, I do believe that a lot of content creators come in and they're not experienced wedding filmmakers. And you don't want any of those people at the wedding. It's bad enough as it is when we've got people standing up with their telephones, and the fact that we've got to, you know, work alongside a photographer as a team. But to have someone else that doesn't really understand the dynamic and might ruin shots, it's not great. But I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people saying, I want a photographer and I want a content creator. And that's why I wrote the blog, because it's like, here's why a content creator is nothing like a professional videographer. If you think that you're going to be able to have long-lasting memories, then you're wrong. And my other argument is, look, it's really hard to get likes on Instagram, right? Unless you're an influencer, and nobody cares about your wedding apart from you, your friends, and if you're an influencer, or unless you're famous, no one cares. So what would you rather have 30 seconds of a snippet go out of your wedding than a film that's going to last you forever? It's like, it's nonsensical.
Well, me and you are in a lot of the same Facebook groups, and you know that this conversation comes up like quite regularly about content creators. And like me and Jamie have even done content specifically around this, and it always blows our mind a little bit, like what you've just said about how videographers aren't offering content creation as an add-on. Because even for I call it something like the social media viral package, so something like that. That's what my add-on is for it. But all I'm doing is taking the content that I've actually shot on the day. At the minute, I'm not even taking a content creator. I'm just creating social media content from the video stuff that I've created on the day. And it's so straightforward. And it seems too simple that people just aren't doing it. And
because
I have
people
this,
don't understand it. We need to educate them, but not just us. And this is the frightening thing. Photographers, who are sometimes the first point of call, planners, you know, they need to be able to turn around and say to their clients, manage their expectations of exactly what they're going to get and what they're going to miss out on. It's mad. But
Yeah,
yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, I'd just take my 16-year-old son with me and get him to pretend he's filming on his phone for a bit. And mostly I'd get him to film me for content of me.
yeah. Well,
that's what we tell people to do.
Yeah.
Like all my social media content, like on my TikTok, my Instagram, my Facebook, is all taken from stuff that I've shot throughout the day. I've just reframed it for vertical content, and it looks so much better than. Now, don't get us wrong. I'm looking at into, like, I've bought one of these devices where you can put your phone on top of it. I might there's other things like the Osmo that you mentioned. There's so many other devices, and I might change it a little bit, but it's so. You're there. You're literally capturing the content as it happens. So I just don't understand why everyone's not doing it.
I did oh, here it is. I bought, is it here? Yeah, here it is. I did a behind the scenes for Switzerland tourism in the summer, and it was like a fam trip. So, you know, with my it's just not going to work, right, with Siriu running around after a familiarization trip. So they were all wedding planners coming to Switzerland. So I bought this little device. I've just actually managed to sell it, but it's Sony, right? So can you see it? It's Sony, and I'm not used to the settings, so I literally used it for that one occasion. You can turn it like that as well. So I used it, and you could get a bit of depth of field on it, but I mean, no more than you can get with your camera, and no more you can get with this new Osmo Pocket. So I've sold it now because I've only used it once, and it's like my head doesn't convert into the Sony settings very quickly. But I bought this for that fam trip, and then I thought, oh no, I'd rather sell it. It was 600, I think, 600 Swiss francs, and then now I've just got the new Osmo Pocket, because that's much handier for skiing and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But and just sticking in your pocket. But yeah, it is crazy what people are doing. But you can get your knickers in a twist. You know, the thing is that annoyed me most about that blog, most annoying thing about that blog, was that this journalist literally, and obviously I'm a journalist, so it's really hard to interview a journalist, because she sends this article and she says, I'm just letting you check it, and I'm literally all over it. This is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, you can't write that. she wanted to write about professional videographers. This term about us, just like just walking around the wedding venue, filming what they see, and I was just a bit like, there's a lot more to it than that. And I said, you have to take that, you have to remove it, you have to think of a different word. That's not what we do. That's what content creators do. But the thing that annoyed me the most about that was because I think she judged me based on my age. So it was like, Emma, 51. I'm like, oh, right, I'm old. That's why I don't know anything about content creators. Oh, I get it. So I thought I was going to get a t-shirt, Emma, pro videographer, 51. It just really, really, really annoyed me because it was like that. She's just like, you just don't get it, do you?
Yeah. Actually, it's you that doesn't get it.
Of course, I get it. Yeah, and she started off with her example, doesn't she? She starts off with the fact that she found this person that spent a lot of money on a content creator, probably $8,000. So she wasn't talking about real people, and I'm sure that person had spent $8,000 on a content creator, but also had a professional videographer. I mean, who's going to be that mad? Who?
Yeah. It comes back to communication. Like if you think from a professional's perspective, like, so it's my job as a wedding filmmaker to communicate the value to the brides and grooms if people are getting married, that I can offer content creation. And if they want to hire a separate content creator, it means you haven't done your job on your website, when you've talked to them, your social content, wherever it is that they've been reading, you haven't done the job in communicating with it. And Jamie, how many times have we had this conversation, like in the Facebook group and with people?
And also in our Wedding Business Accelerator, I think there was one particular time when we had it was like the first in-depth conversation about it. And, I think everyone was kind of chiming in and saying all these good points. And I just said, right, these are amazing, but you're only telling each other about this. Why? There's social content here. There's ads that you could be running saying the same thing. Like, this is all what is needed to communicate to customers, but nobody is. It's the same reason. It harkens back to, I think it was Budweiser that at the time they used to run adverts years and years ago. One of the ways they got famous was they were running adverts about how they brewed their beers in brown bottles, and everyone was like, that's really interesting. But what nobody else realized is every other beer company did that because it protects the beer from sunlight, but none of the other companies were talking about it, so nobody knew. So it was a really good, and again, like when people, you have to step back, kind of 1,000-foot view and be like, right, where are the bride and groom? What are their mindset when they're looking at these things? They don't know anything. You can't tell them that you're never going to secure a wedding by saying, I use the Sony XR. Like, what? Well, the bride and groom don't have a clue, and it's the same thing for the value.
I actually had an inquiry through the other day, and the questions that I got, I was so suspect of. I was like, that doesn't sound like that sounds like someone fishing for information. Well, just contact me on Evolve Videography Training and ask me all these questions. But anyway, I then, did the thing that most people do, is I put her name in Google, and it turned out that she was a podcaster and she had some knowledge of cameras, so I got it. But yeah, so that didn't actually go any further in the end. I mean, it's quite. So I wrote an email. These aren't normal questions. And then I put it into AI and said, "Please, ChatGPT, could you help me tone this email down? Because at the moment, I just sound like a really ranty person." I had loads of arguments with ChatGPT about the thing I'm about to write, and then the thing that it tells me to write. No, but you need to keep on a professional level. Yeah, but.
Jamie says please and thank you to ChatGPT, don't you, Jamie?
I do a lot of times, because when Skynet comes, when Skynet comes, they're going to spare us because we're polite.
Have you ever tried journaling with ChatGPT? It's such good fun when you just got things on your mind. So something I get really, another bee in my bonnet I get really cross about is the situation about people. There's really not enough understanding about if people who live in the UK, where they should be filming, where they shouldn't be filming because of Brexit, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. And also for me here in Switzerland, obviously I can film in the whole of Europe because I'm a Swiss resident, but really I shouldn't be going to the UK unless I apply for a visa. And it's likely if I apply for a visa that it would get refused. But all the photographers and videographers are coming over from the States here because they want to do something different. And that certainly applies for the area I'm in, you know, for elopements and that sort of stuff. And you see all these people going, yeah, I'm coming over to Lake Como. Anybody got any ideas of where I'm filming? I just want to say to them, why don't you just I just get so angry. It's just like, it doesn't work it's just wish it worked both ways. I wish it worked that we could go over to you because you can come over here. But then I get in a bit of a rant about it. So before I post, I normally go now, if I'm in a mood about something, I normally go on to ChatGPT and say, this is what I want to say. Can you save me from myself? And anyone that knows me from years ago, they know I say I'm very Marmite. Either people like me or they don't like me, and it's because I say it as it is. And if I train people as well, it's the same. I don't take any prisoners. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have ChatGPT in my ear. That would be handy.
I'm just laughing there. I'm just laughing there about because Jamie's not like a wedding photographer or videographer. He's like 100% like marketing background, and I'm just going back there when all the flack that we're going to get for him calling the Sony XR whatever it's called, and I'm just thinking about all the Sony fanboys who are going to be giving us negative comments, and I'm thinking of Naeem. Naeem's going to come at you in the next call.
Naeem will, yeah. Naeem's someone in our business accelerator that I'm getting some stick off Naeem. Just jumping back to storytelling very quickly, because I want to make sure that, and then it's going to kind of bridge to, I know you do a lot of amazing training and stuff like that. Hopefully not to bore you to death, but I used to be a full-time professional wrestler, which is the most random thing that you weren't expecting to hear on this podcast. And I thought at the time when I was doing it, I did it for 20 years. I thought that was my sole mission in life to do that. I then found marketing when I was in the midst of that, and I was doing that. This is my 11th. Yeah. This is my 11th year in marketing. So basically what I did when I was traveling from town to town and doing, do you know Butlins and Havens and stuff? Yeah, so that's where I used to work. It's actually where I met my fiance. She came to see a wrestling show, and, you know, now we've got a child together and we're engaged. But yeah, so when I was traveling, I thought I could be making money during this time. I'm not doing anything. That's how I found marketing. This will be my 11th year in marketing and business and stuff. But what I've realized just a few years ago is the thing that I actually fell in love with is storytelling. And that is that's like the soul center of my life. That's what I love. I love copywriting. I love all of that stuff. I love telling stories. So what is if you could be, and the one thing that I see time and time again is wedding videos that start with a shot and then in comes a voiceover of the vows. It seems to be like a trend with so what if you could put it into maybe not a single sentence, because I suppose it's probably more complex, but how would you advise somebody, just from, you know, as much advice as you give like in one breath, if you like, but how would you advise somebody that is currently doing the standard, you know, cinematic shot with a voiceover, the speeches comes in, how would you advise them to reframe the thinking and look at
Stop following the formula. Stop following the formula. Think differently. The one thing I find really strange is, and I don't know if it's just an expression when people say, "Oh, I culled all the footage. I culled the footage down." I'm like, "What?" Like, I literally look back through everything. I'm listening to the audio, the ambient sound as well. I'm listening to interesting, watching visuals and listening. And I would just say that you just cannot. You have to be totally inspired by that couple and their story, and you need to move away from cramming in as much as possible. Stop worrying about, yes, your films have to look beautiful, of course they do, of course you need to use aesthetically beautiful shots, but you need to start using storytelling shots. You need to start understanding the language of film, and you just need to know that people will pass on by and go to the next videographer unless they can sit and watch your films and immediately see the story, understand the story, and go, this is different. You know, the first one thing that we were always taught at the BBC, which was really, really important, is your first 3 seconds are so important. I probably, because I'm nice like that, I might give a film 10 seconds. But if I'm not engaged after 10 seconds, I'm switching off. And I've got to be completely immersed in it. And audio will completely immerse you in it, not just the audio not just the spoken word. Obviously, it's all the ambient sound. It's being drawn in into that story, sights and sounds. Look, just think like this. If we tell a story, stories go back in time, right? And we don't need a TV or a monitor, right? We tell stories to our children from a very young age. When you listen to the radio, my son and I, when we're back in the UK, I still do. That's because I'm 51. Listen to the Archers. My son at the time was 6, and he used to listen to the Archers with me. And we used to have arguments about what Tracy Horrobin looked like. No, I'd say she doesn't look like that. And then he'd go, I'm going to go on the website and I'm going to look. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Our imaginations are so clever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I love listening to audible books, or reading books, but listening to audible books especially, and plays on the radio, because our imagination is so strong, and we just need the sights, the sounds. So you can listen to something and know what's happening. You can create and imagine that place. We've all got different ideas in our minds that it's totally personal to us. So I just would say to people, stop being predictable. Stop thinking, oh, I'm going to start with a drone shot of this venue. Who cares? Might not have even been that wedding day. It's not about the venue, is it? It's about the couple. It be inspired. People are nosy and intrigued about people. Characters are the center of every story.
How much directing are you doing on a wedding day? In terms of telling the couple what to do?
Sometimes none, sometimes not on the wedding day, not so much. I mean, I actually let the photographer do a lot of the work when it's the portrait sessions, if I'm not getting quite enough, or if the photographer's nattering when we're going from place to place, I'll tell them to shut up, and I'll tell the client, sometimes I'll say, can you zip it? Like if you're filming a woman and she's getting ready, bride prep, and she's just like, she just doesn't stop talking, I'll just say, could you just for a bit? Because I hate goldfishing, when the mouth moves, you can't see what's coming out.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I gently, I don't know if that's the right word, but I kind of help people understand.
Stop talking.
Yeah, can you zip it? I help people understand what it is that I need from them. And so that's why I get a lot of the time. Emma knew what she wanted. Mm-hmm. She does not mess about. If you read my testimonials, that's what she doesn't mess about. The grooms and the groom party always find me amusing because they always end up being quite scared of me. Use people around you to help you, get other people, put other people in place. If I see someone like a randomer at a wedding and they look like they're going to get in my way because they look like they're going to take photos, I'll ask them to man a camera for me. Can you stand here? Because I have to keep going to the front. If you can stand here, it'd be really, really good. And then they come and stand next to my camera. Just have to think how you can get these people out of your way. But on the day before the wedding or the day after, if we do stuff together, I won't kind of stage it, but I might, as I say, sit them down, do an interview with them. I have this time capsule, as I say, and that sometimes I start a film on the time capsule film where they open a little bottle and they take out a little parchment and they start reading something, and that starts their story.
Mm-hmm. I suppose most people listening to this, right, on destination, like especially if the audience that's in our Facebook group, that have you got any tips for people who don't have multiple days? Because obviously with yours, it sounds like you've got them a couple of days, maybe one day before.
Sometimes, but not always.
Not always
though. But I when I did my retreat back in November, one of the guys that came on, a really lovely guy, would go to a wedding at about 11 o'clock. And I was literally, and we're talking about a 1 o'clock ceremony, right? I mean, I have often 4 o'clock ceremonies in the afternoon and I'm still up at 9, right? Get the drone up, film the establishers, go around, feel relaxed. It's practice, isn't it? And it's changed him because he now goes to the wedding. Because what do you do in the morning? Just sit around waiting. I can't think of anything worse. Just go. Just get there. Start filming. Start listening to people.
Wasn't me on your retreat, was it?
Huh?
It wasn't me who was on your retreat, was it?
No. No. So now I was like, no, so you've got to go early. What else are you going to do? Go. And don't run away after the first dance because you'll be really regret it. I remember being in Yorkshire once and I drove away from Goldsborough and I'm driving away. Beautiful wedding. And I looked in my rear view mirror, right? And I could see it was turning into golden hour. And I was about 15 minutes away. I was knackered, but I thought, I will never, ever forgive myself if I don't turn around now. And I turned round and they were having a great time with their guests. And I said, outside now. Right. And so it's that, it's also, if it's self-perpetuating, right? So my clients see the films, they go, I want something a bit like that. Well, you're not going to have that because that's not your story, but they want that idea, or they don't want that idea. And so they know that they've got to invest a little bit of time. I recently got asked by a planner to give a quote for a wedding in New York. And the couple had like no limit on budget. And I was gutted because in the end, they came back and they were real quirky. They said they wanted their wedding film to be like a Wes Anderson film. Now, yeah, Jamie, so you know what a Wes Anderson film looks like.
How?
But their second sentences, we don't want to be disturbed during the day. We want the filming to be very, very natural. So I was like, okay, so I could come because I understand the language of film. I can come and I can film this, right? I'll concentrate on that aspect and I'll get the rest of my team to film the wedding, because that is going to take a lot of your time, a lot of setting up, a lot of it's absolutely madness. And then I said, by the way, when that trend has gone away in 18 months, you're going to look a bit of an idiot, aren't you?
How did they see that come into fruition? How would it just happen?
Actually, if you Google Wes Anderson wedding films, you'll see that loads of people have done them. Some very well, some not so.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Wow.
That's exactly what I'm looking at now.
Yeah. So I didn't even know what that meant when she asked me. So I quickly went away and I saw these TikTok films, and I was like thinking, and I went back to the planner and I tried to manage your expectations. I said, you're going to really struggle, because these people don't want their day interrupted, and that is going to take a lot of direction. Lot. It's going to be a fake wedding. That's all about staying true to yourself, right? Staying authentic. Like I really wanted to work with this planner so bad, but I just said I can't.
One last question, just very quickly before we move on to the last section and talk about training and how you
One
can help
last question for this moment.
It's going back to the. You've already kind of answered it already, but it's going back to the audio side of things. I'm just genuinely interested in it. So, are you miking loads of different people up through the day, or are you just relying on like shotgun mics?
Yeah.
So
if I know, like I say to my clients ahead of time, I like spontaneity, just as long as you let me know first. So what I mean by that is I am very quick, but there'll be times when something happens. If it's a major thing that happens, and they haven't told me about it, and I haven't put audio on it, sometimes I won't even film it, because I know I won't. I know to put that in the film, I need audio. So, but if she wants to read a letter out from the groom or vice versa, or then yeah, I'm going to put a microphone on her. But now for things like opening of gifts with the brides, those sorts of things. In fact, you don't even need to put our audio. The shotgun mics are so good. And now with the AI and the podcast, I mean, let me just say something about the AI podcast. If anyone uses that, I urge them to use the paid version, because I was using that. And when it's 100%, it's just like grading, right? When you put a preset or a LUT on your film and you leave it on 100%, it's not going to look very good. You need to pull it right back. It should be just a subtle enhancement of the day. And it's the same with the AI podcast. If you're going to use it, get the paid version. It's not expensive, but I always put something in that I might need to clean up. So when I did the proposal the other day on Mannequin, they were only about 8 meters away from me. I had 2 cameras. I was also photographing and filming on the drone, but I couldn't. And he had a mic on, but I couldn't hear anything. In fact, the audio was so bad that it didn't even sync in the edit. I had to manually sync it because they were so quiet, right? But the audio was beautiful on him. But because I've got AI podcast, I thought, I'll just run it through, see if I can just make it crisp. But what we don't want it to sound like is they're in a studio, right? Because they're not in a studio. So if you run it through and you run it through 100%, it's going to come back and it's going to be like, that doesn't sound real. So you either going to, if you don't want to pay, you're going to have to then mix it with a bit of the other audio. You're going to have to make sure that you get the levels, so you're not 100% on the version that's been fixed, or you're going to pay for it and you're going to pull it back. but while the point I'm saying is that ambient audio, you can kind of clean up a lot in post these days. But when I'm on a shoot and I'm in, let's say I'm somewhere in the UK, because I do film a lot of weddings in the UK, and I might hear, the guns going off in the background in the countryside for clay pigeon shooting or whatever, I'll have my phone with me and I'll write it down. And if when I get back to the edit, it's not clear enough, I'll use Pond 5 or whatever to use the right sort of audio. But I have my phone with me all the time. I'm always writing down the sounds I'm hearing. And if, let's say, I'm somewhere and then I hear the natural sound of the church here in Wengen, and I might be filming something else, I'll carry on filming it till the end of the chimes, and I'll just stick my head in front of the camera to give me a reminder that I was recording something at that time that's significant for the film. Or I'll wave my hand in front of the camera, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea to take notes. I don't know. It's I suppose about being organized with it, isn't it? It's I always find with that
Also
Adobe.
about going early enough to think about these things.
Yeah.
Another thing I really love to do is use the radio to bring you into a place. The radio is a really good thing to bring you into an area. I've used Alexa to talk about what's happening on the weather that day. Using all those tools around you to get to bring people into the film, to bring people into that room and into that moment. What we are not selling a product. We should not be selling a product. We should be selling an experience. People care not so much about what was said, but how it makes them feel. Right. So we want people to go back, watch their wedding films and feel how they felt on the day.
That's big. I think
Awful.
I think this podcast has been a bit of a mini masterclass or a bit of a webinar. It's been amazing. So I think it's a good.
I've got my notes down, yeah.
He's run out of ink.
But you guys are the expert in the social media side of things. I've been reaching out. Well, billionaires have been reaching out to him, going, help! Not so much with my story of your day, because I'm pretty okay with that. I use social media for story of your day, my marketing Instagram for planners and stuff, but I don't really. But I want to learn how to use it for my Evolve videography training, because I don't really use that. And I've got maybe 13 followers on TikTok, and really I should have started that a long time ago. I've got no excuse for it. It's really stupid.
It's hard to try and keep up with all the platforms these days.
It's so hard, isn't it? And then every time I do something on TikTok, my boys take the mickey out of me. It's boring. Why'd you do it like that? So I'm trying to give you something so that your watchers, people that are watching, can take something away from this and have an understanding that it's all has to come together. You have to work hard on all of these things. But one thing is absolutely sure: you can market to your blue in the face, but if you don't have something special, if you don't have a niche, if you haven't worked on who your dream client is, what your niche offer is, and you haven't got a shit hot wedding workflow to make sure that you capture these people and keep these people. I don't know how much you talk about that with your marketing, but it's just, from the point of contact that you guys can be talking about, the point of someone first ever laying eyes on you. You need to make sure that you're offering something different.
That's a really valid point. I think the point I was going to make earlier about this being like a mini masterclass, I think it's going to entice people. Are going to want to know how they can learn more from you. So do you want to talk about the training that you do for videographers and stuff?
Yeah, so first, because I would like to mention it, so at the beginning of April, I'll be at the Filmmaker Global Festival in Athens. It's being run by the guys that originally did the Caldra workshops. It's got Francisco Montoro, Cinema of Poetry. It's really got some 6 amazing speakers. Well, I don't want to say I'm an amazing speaker. I get a bit shy about these things. I am the only female speaker on stage, which I'm really, really proud about. I'm actually the only one that's from the UK, although I'm not from the UK anymore, but obviously I come from the UK. It's a really fantastic film festival, and not only is all the speeches really like masterclasses in depth. Mine's 2 hours long, just about sound design. That's a long time to be talking about it. So it's going to be very practical and very immersive. Everyone's talking about really, really amazing things, but as well as that, there's also awards, and the awards are submitted anonymously, which I think is really, really valuable. So when we are looking at these films, we don't know who submitted them, and I think that's really, really important. But it's really not expensive either. It's I can't believe how cheap it is for people. They've sold loads of tickets, but they're not by any means full. So that's what's coming up in April, which if anybody has a few days at the beginning of April, they should have a look at it. Flights to Athens are really cheap, and I'll be there. But yeah, Evolve videography training started many years ago. When I entered the wedding film industry, there weren't many female filmmakers around, so I actually started my Facebook group, which is the Female Film Creatives, and then I started Evolve. I do have one-to-one students that I mentor. I do workshops for couples. I did couples retreats. But I started off by doing all female retreats here in Switzerland. And then I had a few guys going, well, why can't we come? So I then did loads of work, did loads of rebranding, and then they didn't want to come anyway. They just wanted to complain. And that's actually what happened with my course. I wrote the Female Filmmakers course, and then people said, oh, I want it. All right. So I remade the course with all the new headlines at the beginning, wedding videographers course. It's been re-recorded because it's a different language that I speak, I guess. So yeah. So anyway, they originally were on for £595. 7 modules. Each module has got 6 or 7 sessions in them. There's hours and hours and hours of content, from sound design, from the language of film, workflow, pricing, boot camp on there, bit of marketing, which actually I'm hoping to do something with you guys on another day. We're reversing this. I'm going to be asking you loads of marketing questions. You're going to appear in my course. Billy has agreed, by the way, Jamie. So it's just it's a fabulous course, and now I'm selling it for £45. And
Wow.
I gave my husband a heart attack, but the thing is, I'm using it to so that it's kind of a loss leader, really. I haven't got the time to market it. I'm doing rebranding at the moment for Evolve, so I thought I'm going to just get myself out there, get people knowing about it, and then people will start coming to me, which they already are, asking for one-to-one sessions with me. So it's Evolve Videography Training is the website.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, Evolve Videography Training. And there's lots of different trainings on there. So it's a really, really a good course. And the thing is, there's also some stuff on there about the mistakes I've made along the way. I've made some really huge mistakes. Some of them funny, some of them not so funny. Like the time I put in the wrong postcode in France and ended up at the wrong Chateau du Lac, and it was 9 hours from the one I was meant to be at.
Oh, wow.
But luckily, I went the day before, so I got there at 1 a.m. So little things like where you can learn how you can you can prepare yourself to avoid making some of the same mistakes I have.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I'm going to check that videography training out for £45 for sure. I'm going to be straight on that sound design module.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I don't even own a camera, and I think I might buy it. So
well,
really
actually, interestingly, I also have a photo to film course, which is 25 quid. So anyone that is interested in photography and wants to move into videography, it's got that. So yeah, and I'm updating content. I put a new "What's in my kit bag" content on this Monday. So
don't tell me with that, because I am the guy you were talking about before who will go and buy the latest things.
Yeah, my husband thinks I'm bad. He's going, "What's come in the post now?" Yeah, no, I've got much better. I've got much better at it. I think my biggest waste of money, and it wasn't a waste, but it came at the time when I had a big back injury last year, just before that. So I bought a Canon cinema camera, C70. But once you put the lens on and the grip and the microphone, and then the Sakuto lens, because it obviously doesn't have a what's it called? Viewfinder, apart from the electronic one. So once you put all that on, it was really quite heavy. And then once the end of not last year, but the year before, end of 2022, I had a big back injury, and had a disc removed and some vertebrae fused together. All very gentle stuff. And I thought, I need to cut down my kit. I need to really cut down my kit. And I'd gone on a few shoots and brought in some filmmakers with me, and I'd watched them running around with their little Sonys and their little like monopods, and I was like thinking, I hate you. So, all right, it's going down, it's all coming down. Yeah. So yeah, I just have the smaller stuff.
No,
It's all in the workflow. It's all the preparation, right? I've got so much kit, but you need to know what you need to take with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Emma, thanks so much for coming on. I think we've got into some really interesting conversations there. And I honestly think that a lot of the people who are listening to this will take a lot away from it. And I think it'll have a few light bulb moments in terms of, I know I have had quite a lot there in terms of, right, I need to start looking at my own sound design and doing things like that, and more about actually telling a story of a wedding day. So thank you very much for coming on.
The story of it doesn't actually have to be the story. You have to listen, but you have to listen to the nuances of their story. So yeah, it is. I know it's called Story of Your Day, but it is about the story of the wedding day. Of course it is. But I tell stories about people, places, and love, and they just so happen to be getting married.
Yeah.
See,
Right?
just when you think you know all the answers, she changes the questions. You see, amazing. More light bulb moments. Just when we thought we'd had enough. As
I'm just so sorry I haven't been able to give a really fantastic insight into what shape and how we should be putting films on Instagram, because that is a conversation that I just don't know the answer to. I'm really glad that you're able to tap into the stuff that I can tell you I know.
It's been amazing. It's been an amazing amazing learning experience, even for me that doesn't own and operate cameras. It's been really, really insightful. So well, thanks again so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll get you on again soon for round 2.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Emma.